I fell in love with this immunoglobulin product because of a project that we were working on with a few HIV researchers. So there are probably 3 or 4 researchers in the U.S. that are like extremely well known in the HIV research community. And in fact, as a microbiologist, my last academic research study was on HIV. That was what I was working on a viral, on a attenuated viral, like a vaccine for HIV, using attenuated virus, right? And so I had a background in HIV and how it functions and understanding the virus itself. And then when we got wind of this issue of leaky gut in HIV, then we kind of jumped in and said, hey, we want to learn more about it. Maybe we can help because we have MegaSpore, which helps with leaky gut and so on. And what is that leaky gut from HIV component? You might be thinking, well, I think it was the NIH itself that published a study showing that the leakiness in the gut, so intestinal permeability, which is described as intestinal or enteropathy, right? It's described as intestinal enteropathy, which means like shrinking of the microvilli, diminishing of the mucosal layer. So basically a degradation of the lining of the gut. So that's called an enteropathy is in a broad sense. And what they were able to show was that in HIV patients, the degree of enteropathy and thereby the permeability of the intestine was a better predictor of mortality than viral load, right? So that was a big news in the world of HIV research. There are other papers that came out that showed that the progression from HIV positive to AIDS, right? AIDS is then the acquired immunodeficiency, which is the thing that kills you at the end of the day. That transition from HIV to AIDS was driven by the degree of enteropathy or dysfunction of the lining of the gut and leakiness. Now, I tell this whole story because when we got involved with these researchers and we brought the spores and said, hey, this is maybe a good option for this issue, in that group was already the company that developed the IgG. And at that point, they'd actually already published, I think, 3 studies on utilizing the immunoglobulins in HIV patients. Keep in mind, leaky gut that occurs in HIV patients is, the same for all intents and purposes as leaky gut that happens in anyone else. It's just that in HIV, it's accelerated significantly because of the viral load in the gut, because how it triggers these, CD8 T cells, because their CD4 T cells are diminished. So it triggers this massive inflammatory cascade in the lining of the gut. So it's a very aggressive model of regular leaky gut, right? And what these guys were able to show with this immunoglobulin in 2 or 3 published studies at that time is that even under those extreme conditions, the immunoglobulin can actually slow down the toxicity that's occurring in the lining of the gut, slow down the dismantling of the lining of the gut, and really support the rebuilding of that mucosa and lining of the gut, right? And to me, that was like, holy cow, this is such an important ingredient, because even in that extreme case, it can show functionality. Imagine what it'll do for people with just standard leaky gut, intestinal permeability, and so on. So that's when we started working with the compound. But then later on, we found out, we didn't do the work, another company did the work. We found out that this also binds all kinds of toxins. It binds like mold toxins and viruses. It binds bacterial toxins and so on, which then lowers the toxigenic load in the gut, right? And that toxigenic load in the gut is a key driver of inflammation, and it also negates repair of the lining of the gut. So when you put the immunoglobulin in, it goes through and it just neutralizes a lot of these things that are causing toxicity, inflammation, and all kinds of damage, and it allows the lining of the gut to rebuild, right? So it's such a critical product, and we've seen like interesting anecdotes where people, and this is just within our MBL team when we're all out at dinners and things like that, we've had employees that like ate something that night at the restaurant and then started to feel really odd and queasy. And then they would take, 4 or 6 capsules. Somebody in the room always has the IgG with them. If you're thinking about MBL employees, somebody always has it. So we know we're safe. We're like, oh, okay. Hey, anyone have IgG? Okay, let's give that person some IgG. They take 4 capsules and then they would feel fine. in 25, 30 minutes. We've had one of our employees actually starting to kind of get like a allergic like response to something that she ate. And I think she was starting to kind of panic about it. Then we got somebody had IgG, we gave her the IgG, and like 15, 20 minutes later, she was feeling completely better. Right. So just the anecdotal things, there's lots of research, of course. I use it quite a bit because I put my gut through a lot of stress, as I mentioned, and increased toxicity from traveling and all that. Such an important product, and pairs so well with somebody that is both on a healing journey, because what you want to do is to give your gut and your lining of your gut the best chance to rebuild and so on, is to reduce the toxigenic load in the gut, right? Yeah, modulate the immune response that way. That way your gut has a chance to repair. And then ongoing, it is so good for a protective benefit because of the toxigenic world we live in, right? So we need something to help defend us every day.